Christmas Eve, 2002. While most families were preparing for holiday celebrations, one phone call would shatter that festive spirit and launch one of the most publicized murder cases in American history. This is the story of Laci Peterson, a young woman, 8 months pregnant, who vanished without a trace from her Modesto, California home. What followed was a media frenzy, a husband under suspicion, and a trial that captivated the nation. Laci Denise Rocha seemed to have it all. Born in 1975, she grew up in Modesto, California, known for her bright smile and vivacious personality. Friends described her as warm, caring, and full of life. In 1997, Laci met Scott Peterson at a cafe in San Luis Obispo while both were attending California Polytechnic State University. Their connection was instant. Scott was handsome, charismatic, and seemed like the perfect match. They married in 1997, and by all appearances, they were living the American dream. By 2002, the couple had been married for 5 years. They'd bought a modest home in Modesto, and Laci had exciting news. She was pregnant with their first child, a boy they planned to name Connor, due in early February 2003. Laci was ecstatic about becoming a mother. She decorated the nursery, bought baby clothes, and couldn't stop talking about her son to friends and family. Everything seemed perfect, but beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. December 24th, 2002. Christmas Eve morning started like any other day at the Peterson household. According to Scott Peterson, he left home around 9:30 a.m. to go fishing at the Berkeley Marina, about 90 miles from their Modesto home. He said Laci planned to walk their dog, a golden retriever named Mackenzie, in nearby East La Loma Park, then do some grocery shopping and baking. When Scott returned home around 4:30 p.m., Laci was gone. Her car was in the driveway, her purse was inside, but Laci was nowhere to be found. At 5:17 p.m., Scott called his mother-in-law, Sharon Rocha, asking if she'd seen Laci. Sharon hadn't. Alarm bells immediately went off. This wasn't like Laci. She was 8 months pregnant. She wouldn't just disappear. By 6 p.m., Sharon had arrived at the Peterson home and called 911. Laci Peterson was officially reported missing. What followed was one of the largest search efforts in California history. Volunteers scoured parks, fields, and neighborhoods. Laci's face appeared on missing person posters throughout the state. The media descended on Modesto, and everyone had the same question: where was Laci Peterson? From the beginning, Scott Peterson's behavior raised eyebrows. While Laci's family was frantic with worry, Scott seemed unusually calm. During press conferences, he appeared detached, almost emotionless. He smiled at inappropriate moments. His body language struck many as wrong. His story also had inconsistencies. He said he'd gone fishing at the Berkeley Marina on Christmas Eve, but it was cold, rainy weather. Why drive 90 miles to fish in those conditions? And why leave his heavily pregnant wife alone on Christmas Eve? Scott claimed he couldn't remember what he'd been fishing for. He said he'd used lures, but later said he'd used bait. Small details, perhaps, but they added up. Then came the first major revelation. Just weeks after Laci disappeared, a woman named Amber Frey came forward. She'd been having an affair with Scott Peterson. But here's the shocking part. Scott had told Amber he was single. He'd never mentioned being married, and even more disturbing, 2 weeks before Laci vanished, Scott told Amber this would be his first Christmas alone. He said he'd lost his wife. His wife hadn't disappeared yet. But Scott was already talking about her in the past tense. For months, there was no sign of Laci. Searches turned up nothing. Hope was fading. Then, on April 13th, 2003, a couple walking their dog along the shore of San Francisco Bay made a horrific discovery. They found the body of a baby boy, wrapped in plastic. The next day, April 14th, A decomposed female torso washed ashore just miles away. The head and limbs were missing, but dental records soon confirmed what everyone feared. It was Laci Peterson, and the baby boy was Connor, her unborn son. Both bodies were found near the Berkeley Marina, the exact location where Scott said he'd been fishing on the day Laci disappeared. The coincidence was too much to ignore. On April 18, 2003, Scott Peterson was arrested near San Diego. He'd dyed his hair blonde, grown a beard, and was carrying $15,000 in cash. His brother's ID was in his possession. He had camping equipment and survival gear in his vehicle. Prosecutors believed he was attempting to flee to Mexico. The trial began in June 2004, and it became a media sensation. Court TV covered it gavel to gavel. News channels provided daily updates. The public was obsessed. The prosecution's case was largely circumstantial, but it was damning. They painted a picture of a man who wanted out of his marriage, who wasn't ready to be a father, and who saw murder as his only option. Key evidence included Scott's affair with Amber Frey and his lies about being single, his suspicious behavior after Laci's disappearance, the bodies washing up exactly where Scott said he'd been fishing, witnesses who contradicted parts of Scott's timeline, his apparent escape attempt at the time of his arrest. The defense argued there was no direct evidence, no murder weapon, no crime scene, no witnesses. They suggested someone else had abducted Laci from the park and framed Scott, but the jury wasn't convinced. On November 12, 2004, after 7 days of deliberation, the jury reached their verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder for the death of Laci Peterson, guilty of second-degree murder for the death of Connor Peterson. The courtroom erupted. Laci's family wept with relief. Scott showed little emotion. In December 2004, the same jury recommended the death penalty. Scott Peterson was sentenced to death and sent to San Quentin State Prison. But the story doesn't end there. In 2020, Scott's death sentence was overturned by the California Supreme Court due to jury selection issues, though his conviction stood. He was resentenced to life in prison without parole in 2021. Scott Peterson has maintained his innocence for over 20 years. His defense team continues to fight, filing motions and seeking new evidence. In 2024, they were granted new DNA testing on evidence from the case. Some supporters believe Scott was wrongly convicted, pointing to the lack of direct physical evidence and suggesting alternative theories about what happened to Laci. But most people, including Laci's family, believe justice was served. The Laci Peterson case remains one of the most controversial and heartbreaking criminal cases in modern American history. It's a story that has everything: a beautiful victim, a suspicious husband, a secret affair, and a trial that captivated millions. But at its core, this isn't just a story about a crime. It's about a young woman full of hope and joy, excited about becoming a mother, whose life was cut tragically short. Laci Peterson never got to hold her baby boy. She never got to celebrate that Christmas with her family. And Connor never got a chance at life at all. Whether you believe Scott Peterson is guilty or innocent, one thing is certain: 2 lives were lost, and a family was destroyed forever. What do you think happened to Laci Peterson? Do you believe the right person is behind bars? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more true crime content. And remember, these are real people with real families who suffered real tragedy. Until next time, and stay safe.